Kona, Scott, do you have any testifiers?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. We don't have any testifiers for your committee today.
Okay, thank you. Waimea, Dave, do you have any testifiers?
Good afternoon, Chair. We do not have any testifiers for your committee.
Thank you. And Kohala, do you have any testifiers?
Good afternoon, Chair. No testifiers here this afternoon.
Okay. And let's see. Ka'u, do you have any testifiers?
Thank you, Madam Chair. We have 4 testifiers today.
Okay. Yeah! Okay. And be sure to turn your microphone off in between. But Pahoa, do you have any testifiers?
Aloha, Chair. I have 2 testifiers here today.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and take my testifier in Hilo, and then I'll go over to Ka'u. So, Ms. Berger. Yes, you turn on the mic, and then you have 3 minutes. I think you'll hear a 30-second buzzer.
I won't take 3 minutes.
Okay, just state your name.
Good afternoon. I'm Mary Berger. I'm speaking on behalf of myself as a voting taxpayer. I've provided written testimony, which I'll paraphrase for you. I, like many citizens, have followed the pcard story as it has unfolded. I'm not here to pass judgment on anyone. There's plenty of people passing judgment. But I would ask that you show restraint in your decision making. I think that as you develop policy for going forward from this point, we've all learned a great deal. You've heard the old adage that you need to spend money to make money. That's true in government as much as it is in any business. It's important that government recognize that they are a business. We enjoy using the word omiyagi here. And I moved from Oahu to Hawaii Island 21 years ago and found that I carry more omiyagi back and forth between the islands, not only for myself, but for other people. And that they say, oh, you're going to Honolulu, because they know I go frequently. They ask me to take gifts to family and friends. I mostly try to take items that are specific to Hawaii Island, because I think that's a fun thing to do. But I do have friends that prefer wine as their gift. And so when I'm taking a liquid beverage gift like that, I purchase it on Oahu. It makes perfect sense to do so. With the advance of rules at TSA, it's just not worth the hassle to try to take a nice bottle of wine on the airplane. So when I heard that someone had purchased wine on Oahu to take as a gift, it didn't strike me as any kind of a bad thing at all. It actually struck me as using good common sense. And so that's the only specific comment I want to make about what's been in the news lately. I appreciate that you're taking the responsibility for all of us seriously and that our funds not be misused. But I also ask caution. It's difficult to get good qualified business people to serve in government jobs, and particularly appointed positions. So let's not be disrespectful of their talents and be punitive in these rulemaking. That's what I came forward to ask, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ka'u, can you bring forward your first testifier, please?
Madam Chair, our first testifier is Paul Komora Jr., commenting on Communication 378.
Good afternoon, fellow citizens. What do we not understand about common sense? What do we not understand about oaths that our trusted servants have taken to fulfill their job? What do we not understand about investigation of matters such as this? I do not understand what's going on in our county government today. I'm appalled to it. I will not stand for it. So I ask you, has the commission that our mayor has established, the Ethics Commission, have they sent a report to the council? Can you answer that for me?
Mr. Clerk, can I clarify that, or would you care to?
I would like to know, has someone in that commission established a report and findings about what has gone on with the pcard?
Sir, I can't engage with the testifiers at this point, but I would ask you to call the county clerk's office and ask that question.
Thank you very much. I'll do so.
Thank you.
So the next thing I have to say to you all is that we must stop this nonsense. We look like a bunch of little children. We do not need attorneys to represent us. We're not children, we're adults. So I'm asking the county council today to hold our mayor accountable to his oath for what he has or has not done. Thank you.
We'll continue with our next testifier. This is Stephen Chun commenting on communication number 378.
Yes, my name is Stephen Chun, and I'm part Native Hawaiian, and I'm really disappointed in this whole thing. It's a sad day. There's only three things we need to look at. One, what was going on morally? Two, what was going on ethically? Morally, you got to look at yourself, Mr. Cannelli. Ethically, you got to look at the people that work for you. You have to look at the community that you work for, okay? And then the other thing was the pcard. The pcard is unethical itself. The governor's office, if you don't get rid of this pcard, I'm going to run for mayor myself. Matter of fact, when the mayor job comes up, I'm going to run for the job myself because I'm tired of this. I really am. And I'll do it for free. That's right. Put this on TV. I'll do the mayor's job for free. I'm done with it. And don't let your head get clouded up like I hear about the wine thing. I'm about to throw up. It's done with. I'm tired of this misuse of funds. I'm tired of people doing things that they think is okay when they're adults. So I don't trust old people anymore. I'm 60 years old. I'm retired. I don't trust old people anymore. Young people, please, young people under 25 years old, get on the internet, look at this information yourself, and talk on the internet, and come to the decision and make these committees look like they're silly and be ashamed of themselves. And I am just, and Hawaiians, please, other Hawaiians, come up and speak. Say your words about what's going on. Say your voice. It was in the paper. There's 100,000 Hawaiians out there. Get out there, be active, and don't allow this stuff. This is the end of the luxury. We need to give the people what they want. We need to give the poor people what they want. We need to help this community, not just the rich. It's over. I'm finished. I'm running for mayor.
Yay.
Thank you. I'll come back, Ka'u, to your next two testifiers, but first I'm going to go to Pahoa.
Aloha, Chair. I have testifier Joyce Polina in support of Communications 378.
Is it close enough? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My name is Joyce Polina. I've been a resident of Puna District since 1984, beginning of 1984. And I dearly love this island. People here opened their hearts and their families to me. I was here 6 months. I had 4 big families. Just beautiful. Pertinent to this communication, 378, I've studied this audit report briefly, and I intend to give it more study as soon as I get a hard copy of it. I'm really disappointed with Mr. Kanoi's behavior. This man is supposed to be leading our government in the administrative area, and I feel that the arrogance shown by Mr. Kanoy is, it's not unforgivable, but it's disgusting. I encourage this government to begin and continue to publish all pcard statements monthly of every single person that has a pcard in the employment of the County of Hawaii. No more avoidance of public information to the public, please. As far as the ethics board, and it is a board in the county, it's I think a commission in the state, but the Board of Ethics of the County of Hawaii has only 3 members, which is a quorum, which is reprehensible. We need a 5-member board. I think you can do the math. The avoidance of this board to give their opinion concerning the pcard petition complaint made by Mr. Lenrick Highland is reprehensible. The statement by Mr. Kenny Goodenow that he didn't want any decision to be made by the board, so there would be no undue influence to a jury should there be a jury trial if Mr. Kanoy is found guilty of criminal actions. Well, Mr. Chin, the Attorney General, hasn't given his decision whether any criminal actions have been made. Listen, anything and everything would influence that jury. And the fact that this board is putting this decision off until Mr. Kanoy is out of office, and then it would be moot, is in itself an undue influence to a jury should there be a jury trial. And the fact that Mr. Kanoy has not yet put forth any gift disclosure statements to the Board of Ethics puts him in automatic violation of the Code of Ethics. Thank you.
And my next testifier I have is Gregory Smith in comment of Communications Bill 378.
Aloha and good afternoon, Council. I'm really pleased about the report from the auditor, and it did verify my notion in my prior testimonies that the vast majority of people that are entrusted with these pcards are actually doing the job properly. And the fact that we do have a very clean, upright government in the County of Hawaii, in which we, the citizens, and many people employed in the county government here have worked many years to accomplish. I am very disappointed, not only, of course, in the mayor for his arrogant breaking of the law, but it's also the fact, too, that he has fixed the Board of Ethics with friends on that board, so that basically there's not going to be any decision until, hopefully, in their case, the mayor's out of office. I do have some disappointment with this council, both individuals and as a body, that have not come out, except in 2 individuals, have not come out as a body in condemnation of the mayor and his conduct. I would ask you again that you would bring forth a resolution, number 1, to condemn the mayor for his actions with the pcard, and also honorably request him to resign his position as mayor because he has absolutely violated public trust. There is absolutely nobody in authority over the mayor except our county prosecuting office and Attorney General for the state of Hawaii, period. Now, granted, as the rules are set up concerning the mayor in conduct, there is no direct penalty for his actions, and a good reason for that, because if there were direct penalties, these penalties could be easily used as a political tool for his political opponents. But the problem is that he is the head, he's the head administrator of this county. And he has violated his oath of office twice. He has violated his pcard agreement. And also the fact, too, that if he really wants to salvage his career as well as restore trust in our county government, and we do have a good rapport with our county government, he should resign. Mahalo.
Thank you. In Ka'u, do you have 2 more testifiers?
Yes, Madam Chair. Our next testifier is Richard Abbott, commenting on Bill 378.
Just for clarification, that's a communication.
Sorry. Communication. Yeah, sorry.
Aloha. My name is Richard Abbott. I'm here in Nahalehu representing myself and many other individuals in our district from one end to the other. People today do not trust government. We all know that. Here in Hawaii, the credibility is even worse than on the mainland. The credibility of the state government, the local government's already in shambles. The outright and perhaps criminal abuse of the privilege of use of taxpayer funds cannot be swept under the rug. Simply posting the behavior as the result of inadequate internal controls or their interpretation by the mayor and staff doesn't wash. The mayor's a lawyer. He's been involved in other mayoral offices before, has been an employee of the county, and is well aware and cannot claim honestly that he didn't understand what was occurring was improper. Filed record requests by citizens and media were ignored and unanswered for years. The legislative auditor position remained unfilled. Changes to the county charter were proposed to extend the county clerk term to 6 years without an election. These sort of things don't help instill trust. The repayment of the improperly used funds only occurred after the disclosures. The lack of the development of an ethics policy continues election after election, reflecting the inability of this body and the previous mayor's offices to fix what the electorate wants fixed and we all know is broken: trust. This is an opportunity to put the county government ship on course, on the correct course of due diligence, transparency, enforced internal controls, and most importantly, a culture of honesty and integrity. The mayor himself has shown contrition and understands well the blemish and the mark of shame that is on the fruit of his good works. He has also let down the people in his employee, and there's grave disappointment with the work that many people were doing. Many good works. So let us not downplay the severe nature of the issues of ethics in public service. Let's meet them head on, demand adherence to them. Let's remove any acceptance or acquiescence that any corruption of power that's granted by the citizens to their elected officials is inappropriate and intolerable. I applaud County Council Member Iligan for providing some leadership to make some immediate changes and to provide a venue for discussion. 30 seconds. So let us look at this as serious as it really is. We've got many, also the state of Oregon today announced that the governor signed into law a measure that registers all voters. Voters don't have to register, they have to say they don't want to vote. When I proposed something like that, I was laughed at here. Just like with vote by mail. Now, some of these changes need to occur for the health and vitality of our communities and our democracy. And they aren't political in nature. They're democratic. Thank you.
Our next testifier is Olivia Ling, commenting on communication 378.
Hello, councilpersons. I'm surprised at the nonchalant way that this was handled. We need to investigate, prosecute white-collar crime. If this was somebody that was extorting money from welfare, they'd be in jail so fast. Are we under double standards? Investigate, prosecute white-collar crime.
Okay. Thank you. Is that the last testifier, Mka'u?
Yes, Madam Chair, for this committee meeting, yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify before I close statements from the public? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. I have a few short items I'm going to just take first, and then we'll get to Communication 378. Mr. Clerk, can you please read Communication 24.16?
Communication 24.16, Report of Change Orders Authorized June 16 through 30th, 2015, from Finance Director Diana Sacco, dated July 13, 2015, transmitting the above report pursuant to Hawaii County Code Section 2-12.3.
May I have a motion to file Communication 24.16? Okay, it's moved by Ms. David and second by Mr. Paleka. Any comments or questions, council members? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's 9 ayes. Communication 33.13.
Communication 33.13, Report of Fund Transfers Authorized June 16 through 30th, 2015, from Controller K. Oshiro, dated July 8, 2015.
May I have a motion to approve Communication 33.13? Moved by Ms. David, second by Mr. Paleka. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's 9 ayes. Communication 376, Mr. Clerk.
Communication 376, Supplemental Summary of Bonded Indebtedness as of July 9, 2015. From Finance Director Diana Sacco, dated July 15, 2015, transmitting the above report pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statute Section 47C-3.
We have a motion to approve communication, approve and file Communication 376.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Poindexter, second by Ms. David. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's 9 ayes. Communication 377.
Communication 377, Tabular Summary of Bonded Indebtedness as of June 30th, 2015, from Finance Director Diana Sacco, dated July 15, 2015, transmitting the above report pursuant to Hawaii Revised Statutes, Chapter 47C.
May I have a motion to file Communication 377?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Poindexter, second by Mr. Paleka. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's 9 ayes. Okay, Communication 378.
Communication 378, Performance Audit Report, County of Hawaii's Purchasing Card, pcard program, from Legislative Auditor Bonnie S. Nims, dated July 17, 2015, transmitting the above report in accordance with Hawaii County Charter Section 3-18D2. The purpose of the audit was to determine whether internal controls currently in place were adequate to reduce the risk of fraud and misuse, to evaluate the appropriateness of pcard transactions, and to identify potential areas for improvement.
May I have a motion to file Communication 378?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Poindexter, second by Mr. Paleka. Thank you, Ms. Nims and Ms. Pacheco. Would you like to introduce yourself and give us an overview? I'm not sure which, or both.
Sure, yeah. I'll go briefly over the audit. I'm Bonnie Nims, the Hawaii County Legislative Auditor, and to my right is Maxine Pacheco, who is the lead auditor for the pcard program audit.
Thank you.
And hopefully you guys have all had a chance to look at our audit report, and it's my pleasure to present our first audit report out under my leadership. And basically, in calendar year 2014, the county had approximately 236 purchasing cards and spent approximately $1.15 million. The objectives of our audit were to look at the pcard's program's internal controls and to ensure that they were adequate to reduce the risk of fraud or misuse, as well as identify potential areas for improvement. We also compared those internal controls to industry best practices. To ensure that those controls were working and to test to ensure that the controls were working, we decided to test transactions for compliance with state law and county policies and procedures. During that testing, we tested approximately 570 transactions, totaling $94,000. During the course of that audit, we noted certain transactions that required us to expand our testing to pull an additional 362 transactions, totaling approximately $68,000, and that covered the span from 2009 through 2015. Generally, we found that internal controls were working as designed. The county follows several industry best practices. We identified that segregation of duties is adequate. The county has set purchase card limits on every pcard, and they use a procedure called MCC or blocked MCCs or block merchant category codes. So a card cannot be used in such things as a tavern or a bar. We also, during our testing, noted no exceptions over cash advances, which is prohibited, split transactions where they're avoiding bid law compliance, and restricted purchases of those blocked MCCs. However, during our testing, we did note 164 transactions totaling approximately $29,000 that did not follow county policy, had questionable business purpose, and may have violated state law, which requires, simply put, public money, public benefit. In addition, we did notice some of those transactions were not reimbursed timely. Which brings us to the recommendations. We had 6 recommendations based on what we found, including updating the county code, requesting all departments and employees be treated in a fair and equitable manner, updating the policies and procedures, strengthening monitoring practices to make sure that transactions are spent for an allowable business purpose, as well as clearly demonstrating the public benefit to the county and the taxpayers. In addition, we recommend providing ongoing training for cardholders, supervisors, and the pcard coordinators. And finally, using technology available from the card issuer to improve the monitoring practices over pcard transactions. And I'd like to thank the Department of Finance and other departments that participated in this audit. Everybody was very helpful and very gracious in their assistance. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Nims. Did you want to add anything before I open it up to council members?
It was a privilege and it was my privilege to do this audit. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hey, council members. Mr. Onishi.
Okay, thanks, Bonnie, for your audit, and Maxine. For your recommendations, okay, basically what you recommended is the council just to do, I guess, clarifying within the code, right?
Correct.
And then the rest basically is like within the administration, right, with finance department.
Mostly Department of Finance, correct.
Yeah, and so have you been in contact with them?
Yes. Yes, I have.
And what?
And they're already in the process of implementing all of these recommendations.
So all the recommendations that you had put, that they are implementing it?
They are in process. We have not tested to verify that they are being done, but based on assertions from the Department of Finance.
Okay, and then through your audit, do you think that there is like too many employees having P cards? Like maybe there should be a reduction in allowing.
Not
P card
necessarily.
Why?
P
Okay,
cards.
but why? I mean,
P cards is a best practice. It streamlines the accounts payable process, and the county also receives refunds, or like we receive air miles or cash back. The county also receives those benefits, and so the more that more that those cards are used, the bigger benefit they can get to the county.
so what I'm hearing through your suggestion or through your audit, that what basically everything is okay except for these certain transactions, right? That
Exactly.
you folks found out. So would you say recommend that the administration or the county like maybe move more forward into like this technology?
Definitely. And actually, we do have an audit on this next fiscal year plan to look at if the county is maximizing its P card rebate program.
Okay.
And so that might give some more insight.
Okay, so will you be coming back to us or to the administration to suggest other?
Possibly. We haven't started the audit yet. So just based on our preliminary risk assessment during our planning for this next year's audit, that came to our attention.
Okay, and then to your knowledge with this audit, everything was reimbursed that you folks found?
All of the miscellaneous and personal charges were reimbursed.
Was all reimbursed. So everything's all like zeroed out.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Onishi. Any other council members? Ms. Willie.
Bonnie, so specifically your role was looking at what recommendations to make this system work better.
Correct, as well as to make sure that we are in compliance with state law and that internal controls meet best practices.
One of your recommendations is to clarify the law that you can't use things for personal use. Isn't that clear? I mean, to me, that's like stating what's clear in the Constitution, what's clear in our manual, what's clear all the way down. I mean, it's, I just think that we need to be candid here. I mean, it was, certain things are against the rules. Certain things were done that were against the rules. And now we're saying, let's clarify the rules. So I just, let me just say, for me, I mean, the issue is trust in government. And why did I became a lawyer, saying people that the law should mean something and the law should be applied fairly and no one should be above the law. And what bothers me is this almost went on without it ever being discovered. I mean, I really feel, how is it that we as the departments allow this? We're supposed to have checks and balances, and if no one's there and says, don't do this, I mean, if you're doing something and you're, taking the candy and no one says no and just overlooks it, it just goes on. We're all enabling and becoming part of it. And then it's, okay, let's re-clarify the law? I don't know, you can comment on that.
Our concern with the code that we cited that we recommend clarification is that it does give the council chair and the mayor power or authority to approve exceptions. And it is, while implied that they are supposed to comply with state law, since state law is overarching, to prevent or protect any employee in the future by adding explicit language would just clarify the expectations up front.
So you're saying it doesn't clarify where they can make exceptions to the rule?
It is, in my opinion, vague. It allows exceptions for and adjustments for travel and other expenditures at the discretion of the county chair and mayor. And so just it's a preventative or protect your employees in the future to explicitly state that these are the expectations.
I mean, I just find there's such a discrepancy between allowing what went on with the Office of the Mayor and the management versus, say, the level of scrutiny that's over my card or at others of us, you know, a complete, whole different realm. It's like those of us that are above the law and those of us that have to comply, you know, and, you know, I mean, what is it? How is it that the finance department, you know, why doesn't it work? Is it that everybody here is so intimidated to carry it out? I mean, what is it that's, how can this go so awry? Now, let me just say, one of the things that I feel that should be done is let's make it so it's not just the pcard, that's also whatever other expenses, you know, so you can do something, you know, I can go out and buy Barbie dolls for friends and, you know, whatever, and not put it on a pcard and put it on that. You know, what are the things that are the expenditures, and maybe just as the council is supposed to periodically report and make that available to the public, is there any reason why that same standard shouldn't apply to the executive branch and the mayor?
We all work for the taxpayers.
We all work for the taxpayers. So in my view, if you're spending the taxpayers' money, the taxpayers should know where it is. And in the same way, where there aren't receipts, you know, where you don't have receipts or you don't have an affidavit in lieu of a receipt, and it's just county biz repay, it's that kind of thing. It's just, there's just such a discrepancy. So, I mean, I guess that's one thing I think that we ought to do. You use taxpayers' money, you should be able to allow the taxpayer whose money you're spending, the beneficiary, what it is. You know, whether it's on a monthly or quarterly basis or whatever basis. But then the public can see that and can ask the questions. And it shouldn't be how it can be that the press can ask for copies of documents and not be receiving them. I mean, every check and balance failed here. Every check and balance failed. I mean, it's just amazing to me. And then along with that, I mean, in my view, there were violations, the admitted violations. Our Ethics Commission abdicated its role. I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to impugn the mayor. He's done a great deal that's good, but it's clear. Then you make a decision and you make a judgment. But just as the Attorney General said, you know, this isn't the way it's supposed to be. So, I mean, and there's nothing in terms of your role, there's nothing in terms of accountability. I think the last thing, I think in terms of some of these boards, it would be better if maybe there were 9 members and each of the council members chose someone. Then you would have 9 different people. I will yield at this point.
Okay, thank you. I'll come back to you after the first round. Any other comments, council members? Ms. David.
Yes, hi, Ms. Nims. In the report, I'm trying to look at this as plainly as I can, and the restricted purposes or purchases, examples of them, purchases over the limit, that's pretty clear. Liquor, unless, now here's the problem, unless specifically authorized. So in my mind, if liquor is against the rules for pcard, what would make it specifically authorized? I'm looking at it, and so is good for personal services. Personal is personal. If I'm using my card, if it's for personal use, I'll know it's personal, right? So to me, the clarification would be under these 2 specific items. It is or it isn't. That's my opinion. So liquor, definitely. I don't know how you could authorize it, but so that's my suggestion. And if we're trying to streamline it so that there would be no question, yeah. If you can't purchase liquor, then there shouldn't be any reason why you could. Well, that's mine. So is personal. And the comment, that's my comment, and whether we affect that change in how we manage our pcard program, that would probably be a suggestion of mine. Be very clear. Because someone is going to be accountable, whoever is authorizing that. So anyway, I kind of, that was pretty questionable to me. And I think I like the suggestion in my mind. It's either one way or another. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, and thank you so much for your work. I read the report and did a thorough job, Maxine. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Iligan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I just wanted to say thank you for doing this audit. I really wanted to receive this audit as fast as possible because I felt I couldn't make proper legislation without actually knowing what you know. As we know, this has been an issue in the public's mind, and it's unfortunate what had happened. But after reading the audit, I quickly tried my best to implement the recommendation on your report. I looked at section 2-98 regarding adjustments and exemptions, and specifically B, section B.
Mm-hmm.
And under there, I made sure that I added this one provision. But before I mention this provision, I wanted to ask you, what is your definition of a public purpose while you did this audit?
My basis is if I asked a taxpayer on the county steps or on the street corner if they thought that was a legitimate business expense, then that was my standpoint, is the reasonable person standard. Is there a clear benefit that this money is going to improve the county?
Now, that answer might be different from one person to another. And what is a black and white answer to that definition? I myself couldn't figure that out. So I couldn't put it in a language that could clearly articulate that for the public. But what I did put down, giving the flexibility of our positions that we need to be able to effectively and efficiently represent the people that we represent, the wording that I chose, that I put through is no exemption involving public funds shall be authorized without a public purpose. And that's what I put in. For any exemptions, there's no exemptions that would involve public funds shall be authorized without a public purpose. And I felt that was a catch-on in the sense of now that it is in the chair's mind, it is in the mayor's mind, it is in the minds of the directors of the departments in the county of Hawaii, they have to think a second time. Pretty much the saying goes, think twice, cut once. And that's the legislation that I put through. Keep in mind that some council members, especially Council Member Willie, said in the newspaper that I could have done more, put more wording in there. But to be fair and to allow the department's heads, the mayor, the sitting council chair, to make a decision, I rely on their discretion, whoever they may be, to make those decisions. And I would encourage and support them to think twice and then approve once. So that's the legislation that I put up, that I said months before that I wanted to put legislation after reading your recommendation. And I know in the future, I've already tried to agendize it. We will have further discussion, and hopefully it fulfills the recommendation that you put up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think Mr. Chung had his light on next.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Hi, Bonnie. Hi, Maxine. It's good to see both of you again. It's quite odd. The first time Bonnie and I met was when I first got into office, and it was a courtesy call, right? Thank you very much. And at that time, she explained to me that they were in the throes of conducting a pcard audit. How things have changed, right, since that time. It's probably morphed more into an examination of the expenditures rather than the system itself. But again, thank you very much for your hard work. You know, I wanted to make a few comments, and they had to do with, of course, you know, the report and what I view as maybe being some unanswered questions. Okay. First of all, I think the scope of this started from 2009, right?
The original scope was calendar year 2014. Because of some of the transactions that we identified during our initial testing, we decided to expand to include 2009 through 2015.
Okay. Why didn't it go back further? Because the pcard, the county's pcard program has been in existence. It was adopted. We adopted the state's program in 2003, right? So why didn't we go back all the way to the beginning? And the reason why I asked that is, I think you saw my comments in the paper. I'm kind of concerned, you know, maybe I differ from you in this regard, but I'm kind of concerned with the rise of the pcard and its proliferation, and you know how many people are using these pcards or have their hands on it right now. And I wanted to see when it started to spike, when it started to level off, and what were the reasons for that. That's something that's unanswered here. Perhaps you could, I mean, you know, I don't want to take you guys away from other matters, but that's something that has gone unanswered in this audit, in my opinion, but given my frame of reference. And, you know, it also would have been helpful, and maybe it's in here someplace that I may not have seen it, but if we could have seen the state's pcard rules, right? Because that's where everything starts. And then from there, we adopted that rule. So, you know, as Ms. Willie said, maybe there's nothing more that we can or should do. Maybe everything's in place. Although I do believe we can tighten up maybe the checks and balances to all of this. I don't know how that's going to be accomplished, but maybe that's something we can look into. You know, I really regret that we don't have Mr. Iligan's ordinance or bill in front of us today. You know, he was referencing it. It was hard to digest the discussion because it's not here. I read about it in the newspaper, you know, and I really congratulate you, actually, Mr. Iligan, for taking the initiative and following up on the auditor's recommendations. But, you know, I really expected it to accompany this. It would have been better. Then we could have cross-referenced what he's providing and then to see if it follows your recommendations, and if so, whether those recommendations would be things that are just redundant or whether they would actually make substantive corrections to our program, our processes. And then, you know, with regard to this, you touched upon something interesting, that we get a slight rebate from the lending institution. Can you explain that a little bit more for me?
Not real detailed. Basically, from the research I've done, is industry best practices are to use pcards for the two reasons. One, it expedites the processing, the timeliness of paying those accounts payable bills. In addition, there are actually several performance audits out there that have already gone through and made the recommendation to optimize the pcard rebates. And my understanding is it works just like our personal credit cards do, where you get a cashback bonus based on your usage of your annual usage of the card. And by using the card more often, especially on items such as paper or reoccurring expenditures, you can increase the revenue or the rebates to the county.
This is with First Hawaiian Bank, right?
Yes.
Has a lender ever told the county that we have to up our spending?
I couldn't tell. That would be a question for Deanna.
Okay. All right. I mean, I just want to see what's driving. I mean, if there are any hidden components which are driving the program, driving spending. Okay. No, that's okay. What, you wanted to answer that?
The pcard program is actually a state RFP that they send
Deanna.
out and bid. Oh, sorry, Deanna Sacco, Director of Finance. And so it's bid out statewide, and all 4 counties in the state comply by the same guidelines, the same rebate program. So it's the spending as a whole. So no one's ever, asked us to, spend more or not.
Okay.
It's really to help facilitate county functions and purchasing.
Good. Thank you very much, Deanna. Okay, I that's really all the questions I have for now. I want to again congratulate you for bringing this to us. It's informative. I'm just kind of waiting to see what Mr. Iligan comes up with next. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right, Ms. Poindexter.
And thank you for all your work in this for this document. Now, I just wanted to clarify, when you spoke earlier, you said that, using things for the umayagi and stuff like that is okay, right? Okay. And then I heard a testifier, a public person, because you also stated, if you ask a public person just going to be sitting on the steps, do you think this is appropriate? Well, I did hear from a public a testifier, and she stated earlier that for the umayagi, she felt that the bottle of wine was acceptable. So in I guess in the rules it says liquor unless specifically authorized. So what you're saying is that is a general statement. So if they would specifically say unless specifically authorized for umayagi or something like that, I'm just not saying that it's going to be said in that way, but that's what you're saying, to clarify what that specific authorization is.
Correct. However, in addition, we did talk to the state procurement office and inquired as to the state policy on purchasing alcohol, because there is nothing written in any of the statutes that explicitly allow or prohibit the purchase of alcohol. When we talked to the state procurement officer, they said, well, it's not explicitly stated, it is an implied prohibited item. And we feel that the state policy is a good guideline. I do recognize that there are some instances, such as sister city transactions, that it may be an exception, and that is for management to decide, but possibly clarifying that policy on when specifically authorized would be applicable.
So that's the culturally appropriate, I guess, when the public was testifying, or I forget her name, but anyway, she testified, and what you just stated, what was culturally appropriate for maybe some sister cities to buy a bottle of wine, so it's just getting clarity on, because I could buy tell me if I'd get in trouble if I'd buy a cake and I didn't know had rum in the cake. Somebody goes, do you know that was a rum cake? I don't know. So I'm just saying, you were talking to us earlier about it was too general just to say unless specifically authorized. You wanted a little bit more teeth in what is specifically authorized.
Right, yes. If it's even an implicitly prohibited item at the state, when would it be allowable to be purchased for the county?
Right. So, and I agree with you, because we have to look at, the unintended consequences too, because of relationships and what we have to do. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying we need to start discussing that, and we start looking at that. And I'm sure, Councilmember Iligan will bring up something, and I heard that Councilmember Willie was also working on something, so I look forward to that discussion as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kanuha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And mahalo, Bonnie and Maxine.
You guys did an awesome job. I know being this was your first audit, you did a pretty thorough job, and we have this pcard policy, and when you look at the entirety of your audit, the county is actually doing pretty well.
Definitely.
And that's one of the main things I got out from this audit. Yeah, there was a few things that obviously took precedence over, but thoroughly the county has been doing a good job, and especially in our branch of the legislative branch, the checks and balances were there to protect the members as well as the workers, and I truly appreciate that from our staff. But also, I have been working with your office, finance, corp counsel, on possibly amending or the recommendations that you have set forth here. I mean, it's pretty basic recommendations and implicit. When you look at the state law on prohibitions of certain things, what you're purchasing, it has to be for a public purpose. That's automatic. Whether it's not set in our county code or not, I think that's what to clarify, the authorized exceptions for travel and other expenses are still required to follow state law. It's set in state law, so us as a county, we have to obviously follow the state law. And we have been working with you to try to see what those clarifications would be, and I know it's been said earlier about how to make that happen, and it's pretty difficult to put it in words. And that's the trouble why I didn't come out with something earlier, because I wanted to make sure we got the right wording in there. So, we're still working on that, and whether I put something forward or not is yet to be seen. But I appreciate your help and the finances help. I know the finance is following through with their recommendations, and that's really great. Needed to be done. And pretty much everybody's going through with the recommendations of the ledge auditor, which is awesome. Definitely. And I think we need to. So from that standpoint, I appreciate all your hard work, and look forward to what else we can do with when it comes to clarifying the code. So we'll see and wait upon that. But thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Mr. Pelaka, did you have a comment on this first round?
No, I think, just to echo on the alcohol purchase allowances. According to the memorandum, July 1999 prohibits the purchase of alcohol for consumption by employees or for functions involving the county, with the exception of when such purchase is necessary for the entertainment of dignitaries by the mayor, the chairman of the county council. What about the council members? Or their authorized representative. Any such exception shall have the mayor's written approval, so the mayor approves it, or the approval of the chairman of the county council. I think to take out restriction or to restrict that allowance in terms for sister cities or for dignitaries visiting would kind of embarrass us, actually, especially if they're coming from Europe. I mean, wine is drunk more than water from living there. Not only that, it's part of our. It's not just entertainment; it's showing aloha. I mean, that's what we were doing many years ago, in inviting dignitaries and representatives from other countries to show our aloha. And it's not uncommon to have a alcoholic beverage. To limit the restrictions for any other purchase, I think would be in order. But I just wanted to echo that. But the other recommendations, I really don't have a problem with implementing. I hope we do so. But, I would certainly not want to finger point at anyone. And I think we've all been scrutinized for our pcard purchases. Some of us have also almost had our pcard taken away from us. Me not being one of them, but I think it's important that we not point the finger or drag somebody else down, without looking at ourselves. We're all responsible. We're adults. We know better. I we give a moral compass. You know what is right or wrong. Just do what you believe is right. When you act bono, hey, purchases comes kind of automatic. We're here to do the public's job, work. And I think if we implement the recommendations, thank you, Bonnie, for doing such a good job. Highlighted here, we'll be all right. But to try and make this a punitive matter, I think it goes above and beyond. So, if I'm going above and beyond myself, but I just had to say that. Mahalo.
Thank you, Mr. Paleka. Okay, council members, Mr. Ligon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to clarify some things too, since Councilmember Paleka said something about the acquisitions with the pcard. Our accountant's here, and I just want to say, since I've been elected, I never opt for a pcard. So I've never had a pcard, so you can't take away something that I don't have. But there was a purchase that I remember with my trying to get authorization and reimbursement, is we had the HCCC inmates go to Kapoho and do cleanup. And I paid using my personal funds for their meals. And I asked for the chair to reimburse me because I felt that was a public service. And the chair approved it. And I didn't have a pcard to swipe that purchase. So if the chair would have denied me, because he never thought that was a public purpose, I would have been out that much money for my personal funds. But that's the thing with public purpose. It's so hard to really put it down in words. You really need individuals in that position to really have that judgment, and we have to rely on that individual to make that judgment. But I just wanted to state that since I've been elected, I never had a pcard, and you can verify that. But I just also want to state that that public purpose is really hard to define. But we should have that flexibility for our chairman, for our mayor, for the directors in our departments to allow those purchases that would really make our government more efficient and more effective and serve the public better.
Agreed. And I think it's a demonstration of the public purpose where that comes into effect. If you can adequately demonstrate or document or explain why it's a public benefit, then, that's usually adequate. I don't necessarily, we don't, as auditors, question judgment so much unless it's just blatantly contradictory to state or local law. If there are inadequate explanation as to the purpose of those funds, then...
And one more other thing I also want to comment. For council members, our DAE expense, which comes from if we have a pcard purchase, the reimbursement is online. It's publicly out there for everyone who wished to see it. So that's why I felt that the comments that Councilmember Willie made were inappropriate in the sense that they're already online for us. So one of the things I just wanted to also make that I just wanted to take the first step. I wanted to put a legislation from my interpretation of the audit out there. You really didn't have to criticize it. You can make an amendment when we have introduced it in council. But I just wanted to take the first step, and that was my first step. You don't have to put me down right off the bat. Just saying.
Mr. Chung.
Thank you again. Bonnie, I had a question. Page 7, miscellaneous reimbursed purchases. The audit identified 116 transactions totaling $17,000 some odd dollars that did not have a transaction description. Can you explain that? I mean, so you still are without any transaction description?
In the accounting system, when you process a pcard, you are required to enter in what the purpose of the transaction is for. These transactions, the only description was miscellaneous to be reimbursed, or a variation of that phrase. When we looked at the transaction summary reports, there was no itemized or detailed receipt. Sometimes there was a treasury receipt showing that it was reimbursed, but nothing to indicate, besides a bank statement, that that transaction occurred.
But couldn't you go to the bank and get some kind of record as to...
We did look at the bank
Okay.
statements, but again, it will only have the vendor information. It will not have what was purchased at that vendor.
I mean, because, so, you know, all of these reimbursed or reimbursable items would tend to lead one to believe that there were $17,000 worth of improper, maybe even more, depending on how you look at it. There's 29,000 here. It might lead a passive observer to, you know, come to the conclusion that there were many, 116 at the very least, improper transactions. But is that necessarily the case?
We could not determine if they were improper or not because of the way that the item was described in the transaction summary and the fact that there was no receipt to document the transaction.
Okay.
But we did do a vendor scan based on those transactions and did note some vendors that did not clearly have a clear business purpose. Now, there may have been, and if we would have seen the receipts and the justification, that might have been passable, but that was not provided.
Okay, so is this something, if I could ask a question of Mr. Ilagan, is this something that's going to be addressed in your bill? Because you already spoke of how the council has to be transparent. You know, whenever we use our pcard, it's going to be shown on our DAE expenditures. Is that somewhere where we could improve on?
So to clarify your question, what the legislation that I'm introducing is the audit recommendations clarify the county code. Is we recommend that the Hawaii County Council consider revising the language of the county code, Article 16, Section 298. So that's where I went. Adjustments and exemptions. To clarify, the authorized exemptions for travel and other expenses are still required to follow state law, requiring public funds to be used for public purpose. So what I did was saying that no exemptions are, hold on, I gotta get to it. No exemptions are approved unless it's for public purposes.
Okay, excuse me, Mr. Clerk. Are we going out of order to be discussing a future legislation at this point?
Yeah, I just, you know, actually asked a simple question. You know, he could have said yes or no.
Well, I'm not sure,
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Ilagan, but
I mean, it's up to you, Chair. I feel like we're on subject, and I'm pretty sure the public would like to know. It's not like we're talking about what I did yesterday, and I'm just saying.
I'm just asking for clarification, but maybe you've answered his question
Yeah.
far enough, and we can move to another point.
Sunshine is all about transparency. I'm pretty sure we're pretty transparent here. There's nothing. Well, anyway, I don't want to argue. I'm sorry for even arguing. And I just want to quickly also state to your question, Councilmember Chung, is in the paper, it state that Councilmember Willie said I didn't go far enough, that it should be out there publicly online. And that's what I was referring to. Our records are online, and we are going above and beyond, and that it's transparent. So that's what I was alluding to.
Well, anyway, but you know, I really wish that this was tagging along with the pcard audit, and we could have really had a better discussion. Thank you very much. So anyway, you know, I'm glad that Chairman Kanuha mentioned, you know, he pointed out that it's only just a few departments, right, that had questionable transactions. But the county as a whole is really doing quite well. So that's at least a positive spin to that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I wanted to also touch upon something that Mr. Paleka brought up. And he didn't say it in these words, but I think basically we shouldn't get paralyzed because of all of this. I mean, you know, I think all of us has in one way or another articulated what is a proper expenditure. And it's quite simple, really. if it's designed to advance a clear county objective, and we can justify it, no problem. I think transparency is key. Now we have public scrutiny because of all of this, and that's already a built-in protection. I'm looking forward to see what additional things we can do to tighten up this process. But I don't foresee this thing being a problem in the future, quite frankly, just because of what's happened, during this time. And maybe 10 years from now, people will forget, and we might have more problems. But I really think just transparency is the key. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chung. Ms. Willie.
Well, I see sort of three levels. One is the clarity of the law, which is a lot of what we've been discussing, and I don't really see that as a big problem. Maybe we can clarify it, but I don't see that that's really where it went wrong. I don't see that there was a lot of disagreement about whether, spending money at the Evergreen or a surfboard or whatever, whether it was a public purpose or not. And I think even the case of the mayor, he accepted that, and pretty much it was clear. So, but then the second point is really in the administration of the law, and that's where I see that it went wrong. It wasn't carried out. It just plain wasn't carried out. And I do think, as others and Councilmember Chung just said, transparency is the key. And what I was saying, just to correct Councilmember Iligan, I wasn't pointing to us and our DAEs being available, which they are. It should be in the executive branch. The mayor, your little point in there, everybody treating everybody fairly and equitably and the same, that it should be. And, whether liquor's allowed or not isn't, but if it is going to be done, whether it's that or something else, it should be there. It's others' money. But I think also in terms of the carrying out, one of the things that the finance department said in response to your fair and equitable treatment is the Department of Finance has started to require the mayor's office to follow the policies and procedures that are in place. I mean, okay, we're going to start doing the law now. It's just so, it's the carrying out. We can clarify public purpose and refine it, and everything's always a continuum, and where do you draw the line between public and not? And such as, we were talking about the miscellaneous ones. Well, they should just all be rejected. No receipt, no accountability. That's no. Then it shouldn't be you all checking the vendors. It should be these are all rejected. Those should all be repaid unless they want to come forward. And I don't know whose those were. Bring it forward. And I think the same thing in terms of the split, where there's a split account for, in other words, when I went to the NACO conference, I also then went to visit my daughter. Okay, so I use, on my credit card, but I would think where it's split, it shouldn't be the pcard. You're going to do a split, then you do it on your own. I don't feel that we should be driven by our 1% or 2%, and then finally, it's the accountability for an abuse. I don't see any of that. Zero. And, I feel like all of the different entities, it's a different situation, but even the court, and that had to do with Bobby Jean and whether she was qualified, they said, well, if it's no biggie to the council, the court's not going to say anything different. So I really think it is on us if there's going to be a change or if there are things. The ethics board's not going to do anything. The mayor will be out of office by the time the AG's office is done. So it's basically, let's clarify what public purpose is. To me, that's so minor because it really wasn't. And I'm sort of waiting to see what that Councilmember Iligan started the conversation is going to get something in, and I was sort of holding up to add to that and not start doing my own, but I do think that it should be in there that all of the departments, everyone who does, as far as I'm concerned, if you have a pcard or you're doing county expenditures, why not make it available to the public? And then they know better. Why? Let's, be proud of, you're doing that and what you're doing, and you're working hard. I know the police chief, seemed like an amazing number of days he was away, and I'm going, well, I wonder what all those days away, it's all that travel expense from. But I'm not saying it wasn't totally legitimate, and if I'd seen it, I might have been very happy about it. But, so I just want to, I think we do have another chapter in this coming up when doing the bills, but I think that focusing on clarifying public purpose is really, it's getting the checks and balances and getting the transparency to the extent possible. And is there any accountability for abuses?
Okay, thank you.
Which is not here.
Thank you, Ms. Willie. Are there any other comments, council members? Okay, well, before we file this communication, I'd just like to thank both of you for providing us with the report and for being willing to talk to us and answer all of our questions. And excellent work, and thank you, council members, for a good discussion. So did you guys have anything else to add?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, then I'll take a vote to file communication 378. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That's 9 ayes. Thank you very much. Okay, one more item on our agenda. That's Resolution 234-15. Mr. Clerk.
Order of Resolutions, Resolution 234-15 authorizes the payment of funds of a latter fiscal year and of more than one fiscal year for a multi-year lease for one copier for the Office of Management. Authorizes the mayor to enter into a 4-year lease agreement for a copier at an approximate cost of $250 per month. Reference Communication 393, introduced by Ms. Eoff.
Okay, we have a motion to approve Resolution 234-15. Moved by Ms. David, second by Mr. Paleka. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. That's 9 ayes. May I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Mr. Kanuha, second by Mr. Onishi. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That's 9 ayes, and we're adjourned. And the next committee is Environmental Management. And we're running just a little bit late, so.